Okay, so we're going to make a GAPS Legal pea soup today, and these are the ingredients. We have the peas that have about a pound of peas that have been soaking overnight. We have a chopped onion. We have 3 stalks of chopped celery. We have 3 carrots cut up into big pieces. We have, this is a ham shank, a little piece. You don't have to use this. You could use bacon. You can use another piece of pork, or you don't have to use any meat in it at all. Then we have my chicken stock, which is going to become part of the pea soup, some water, and some garlic. Now we're going to start by adding some olive oil to the pot, just a little bit, a couple of tablespoons maybe, and we're going to put the ham shank in. We're going to brown it on each side and then remove. Okay, so this piece of pork has been browning in here for maybe about 5 or so minutes, and I did brown it on each side, and this is going to flavor the whole soup. It's kind of a smoky flavor. If you don't like that flavor, like I said, you could leave it out. So now that I've browned it, I'm going to remove it and set it aside, and I'm going to add in my onion and celery. There's still some oil from the olive oil that I was cooking the ham in, and we're going to add a little salt, and we're going to saute this for about 10 minutes. Okay, so the onions and the celery have been cooking actually for about 15 minutes in the olive oil. You don't want to have a lot of oil, just a thin layer on the bottom, and it was the remainder from when I was cooking the pork piece. And now I'm going to add in 2 cloves of garlic, and like I've said before, the garlic just sautés very briefly for like 1 to 2 minutes, just to get the flavor. You don't want to burn it because it gets a bitter flavor. Once the garlic has just sautéed briefly, we're going to add the rest of the ingredients in. We have the peas that were soaked. I'm going to add those in. We have the carrots. The reason they're in such big pieces is because I like to puree my soup when it's done, and it's easier for me to pull out less carrots. This is 4 cups of water. I'm going to add in also some chicken stock, but about 4 cups. I'm going to put a bay leaf. I had already added some salt to the onions, but I'm going to add at least another couple of teaspoons of salt by the end. And I'm just going to go ahead and add in my I'm going to add in my 4 cups of chicken stock. And with pea soup, sometimes you need to add more water. So I'll fill this cup up with a couple more cups of water, and I'll just leave it aside. And if it looks like it's too thick as it's cooking, I'll just add a little bit of water as I go. I'm going to put the ham piece in. Give the soup a little stir. And for the whole time it's been cooking at medium-low, or low to medium. And right now I'm going to bring it up to a boil, and then I'm going to lower it down to a simmer, and it's going to cook for at least an hour. Okay, so we brought the pea soup up to a boil, and I'm just going to take off a little bit of the foam that got on top. There's really not that much. And then I'm going to put the cover on. I'm going to leave it open just a little bit, and I'm just going to check it in a little while to be sure it's not boiling too rapidly. We want maybe a little bit lower simmer than this, so I'm going to lower it down, put the cover, and I'll check it in a little while to make sure it's boiling the way I want it to, simmering the way I want it to. Okay, so the soup's been cooking for about an hour at this simmer right here. And I did taste it, and the salt is good, and you should always taste it to be sure the seasoning is good. And you can see that although the peas are soft, I did taste them, they are in pieces. It's not like smooth and creamy. So you could keep cooking it longer if you want. You could leave the cover off if you wanted it to thicken up. I don't like my pea soup too thick, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to let it cool down a little bit. I'm going to take the carrots and the piece of pork out, and I'm going to use my immersion blender to get it all smooth and creamy, and I'll show you that when it's done. Okay, so I've taken the ham shank out. It's in a bowl on the side. I'm just going to let that cool for a little bit, and then I'm going to take the meat off of it to add to the soup, if that's what you're using. I took out the carrots because I'm going to use the immersion blender to smooth out the soup. So I got all the carrots out, and I'm going to take out the bay leaf, of course. I don't want to chop that up. And like I said, you could cook this longer with the cover off. It'll thicken, and the peas will disintegrate more, so it will be less chunky. But I'm going to do the immersion blender, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I used the immersion blender, and this is the consistency right now. It's probably a little thinner than usual, so I am going to just cook it a little bit more with the cover off to let some of the water come out and thicken it up a little bit. I'll add the carrots back in now. And after I take the meat off the bone, I'll also add that back in, and I'll show you the finished product when I put it in. Okay, so the pea soup is done cooking. I added the ham into it, the pork that I pulled off the bone with a fork, and I had put the carrots back in. It's smooth the way I like it, and it has thickened up. I've cooked it for a little bit longer with the cover off. This is suitable for someone on a the Full GAPS program. So I'm going to just serve it up, and I tasted it. It tastes really good, and I hope you get a chance to make it and you like it too.